times. Mr. Brock, you're leading us off for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your attendance again, Ms. Verschuren. There's a couple of loose ends that I want to pick up on from the first round with my colleague, Mr. Perkins. Through information received from the head of the appointment process at the PCO, Donalyn McClymont, we received certain information with respect to the process, the recruitment process, the actual hiring. So it would appear that applications were received by the PCO on the 12th of October 2018. 56 applicants had applied. The PCO interviewed 8 to March the 15th of 2019. Of those 8, 5 were recommended to be reviewed by Minister Baines at that time. However, none of those 5 passed whatever sort of threshold test Minister Baines had applied, because during that interim period, from October of 2018 to May 2nd, 2019, another 47 applicants had applied. It was shortlisted to 16. 3 were ultimately interviewed. You were part of that process. In fact, you had applied after your conversation or conversations with Minister Baines on April 30th, 2019. So a total of 6 recommendations were sent to Minister Baines. So now, with that timeline in place, as to the best of your recollection, when do you recall first receiving that phone call from Minister Baines? And if it wasn't from Minister Baines, was it from someone from his office? Explain that process to us, please.
Mr. Chair, I don't recall the date of when I received that phone call. I don't recall the date of that.
Applied on April the 30th, 2019. Was it the day before? Was it a week before? Was it a month before? Does that help you recollect? Your application was filed April 30th, 2019.
30th. Yeah. I don't recall.
Okay.
But
and was this just a cold call out of the blue? You picked up the phone rang, and hi there, Ms. Verschuren, this is Minister Baines. I have something to present to you. Was it something like that, or was there a process? Was there an email? Was there a letter that set up a specific time that he wanted to reach out to you? What can you recall about the process?
The process wasn't, it was probably, it was in the context of advice I was giving to him as part of his industry portfolio. And I think he did talk to me once outside of a telephone call. And I do not recall what he said at that time.
Well, it must have been flattering to you that he would consider you for this very important position. You clearly indicated you wanted some time to think about it. Was there more than one phone call from Minister Baines, again, highly recommending to you that you apply for this position? Was there more than once? Because I got the impression when you initially testified at a different committee that it was possibly up to 3 different phone calls, maybe 2 to 3 different phone calls, and that you ultimately made the decision to apply. Does that refresh your memory?
I think that there could have been a couple of occasions that he brought this up outside of a telephone call. I was involved with some events that he was at, and so it was a general conversation.
I'm running out of time. I want to ask one last question.
Briefly.
Did you declare your conflict with respect to the SDTC during any of those conversations with Minister Baines before you filed your application, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I don't recall talking specifically about that conflict, no.
Thank you very much.
Third round now.
Mr. Nader, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, thank you to our witness for joining us here today. Ms. Verschuren, do you know who Andrew Noseworthy is?
Yes, I know who Andrew Noseworthy is.
So earlier this week, we had former Deputy Minister Newbley here, who used the phrase that Andrew Noseworthy was his, quote, eyes and ears on the SDTC board. Would you agree with that assessment of Mr. Noseworthy, that he was the eyes and ears of the industry department on the SDTC board?
I would agree with that assessment.
Okay. So my understanding is that Mr. Noseworthy attended nearly all, if not all, SDTC meetings. Is that your understanding as well? Was he at nearly all such meetings?
Yes, Mr. Chair, he was at, I would say, most meetings.
Okay. So
Most board of directors meetings, yes.
okay. So we've established that he was the eyes and ears of the department. He was sent there specifically by the deputy minister to be the eyes and ears. So now I'm curious, what was the role he actually played in those meetings? Did he at any point make note of the fact that there were problems with the conflict of interest? Did he raise any concerns about recusals versus abstentions? What was he saying at those meetings?
He participated, and I would often ask him to talk about, ICIT's direction and his response to the performance of SDTC.
So he was. Sorry, go ahead.
So he never questioned the procedures at the board level.
Okay,
with me.
Okay, so we established that Mr. Noseworthy did not make note of the conflicts of interest or raise those issues. But I want to follow up. So he was basically providing the SDTC board with the direction from Industry Canada, what Industry Canada wished to see at SDTC. Is that my understanding?
He was, obviously, Mr. Noseworthy was the representative of ICIT, and it was important to, have that relationship between ICIT and the board of directors and management. And he would work with the CEO often to talk about, new ideas or initiatives that SDTC may have.
Okay. In the time since you've left the board, have you had any further contact with ADM Noseworthy?
I have not.
Okay. I want to go back to the selection process. Our understanding is that you applied to be the chair on April 30th of 2019, and I think we've established that prior to that, you had received at least one, sounds like two, phone calls from Minister Baines and perhaps other discussions with the former minister at perhaps public events or receptions of some sort. When you applied, were you aware that the Privy Council office had determined, and I'm reading this from Privy Council office, quote, the committee agreed that all 7 individuals are strong and that they also represented unique strengths that could serve the interests, current needs, and future direction of the SDTC. So that's referring to the highly qualified individuals that had applied prior to those phone calls. Were you aware that there were other individuals at that time who were deemed to be, quote, highly qualified for the position of chair and for positions on the board?
Mr. Chair, as I indicated, I did not look for this position, but when, and I was approached, after reflection, I did apply for that. I had no knowledge of who the other applicants were. I had no knowledge, quite frankly, of the process itself.
Sure. Thank you. Did the minister at any point note why specifically you were being encouraged?
I think the minister recognized my business experience, my focus and interest in the clean technology area, that I had committed to push this industry forward in everything I did.
And that is your time, Mr. Nader.
Next, Mr. Perkins.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to follow up on the questions of my previous two colleagues from the Bloc and the NDP, but I would like to follow up on something I asked you earlier. In the timeline on your appointment, when you sought advice from the Ethics Commissioner on your conflict of interest in assuming this position, the conflict of interest being that the board that you were about to chair of the organization that was already lending or granting money to your company, was that after you had accepted the position in your conversations with Minister Baines?
I believe it was done absolutely before I was appointed, and it was done. It was done in the I think it was a few days before.
You applied. Somewhere in that neighborhood you applied,
yeah.
But after okay. I'd like to follow up on the questions. So you sat on the board of the Verschuren Centre, and did you sit on the board of Sandpiper as well?
No, I did not.
Okay, but you are an investor in Sandpiper, and you sit on the board of the Verschuren Centre, did at the time?
That's correct.
At the time you were chairing the SDTC board. Correct?
I'm trying to remember when I became an investor in Sandpiper, but
okay, I'll come back to that. So the Verschuren Centre sought $6.8 million from SDTC, and they did that without consulting the board of the Verschuren Centre? Because when I look at the cash flow statements and the income statement of the Verschuren Centre from the time, it appears that it was in desperate need of this money.
I declared conflicts at the board of the Verschuren Centre on anything to do with SDTC.
That wasn't my question, though. It did go through the board. So when it went to the board investment committee on January 13th, the minutes, January 13th, 2022, the minutes rejected it, as you say, for all the reasons of conflict of interest. And the minutes say that SDTC would shift its efforts in discussion with other potential funding sources and hope that the diligence conducted to date can be transformed into another funding agency. And that was in January. And in June, ACOA gave the Verschuren Centre $2 million. And so on. For the next couple of months, another $4.2 million was given by other government agencies, another $1 million in September by ACOA, another $3.1 million by ISED, which Mr. Noseworthy acted for, and also another $1.4 million from DFO in May of that year. So do you believe it was ethical to use the staff of SDTC to be the business development funding officers for the Verschuren Centre that you sat on the board of, on both, that you used the staff of your own agency that you chaired to help fund government money in other ways for the other organization you established and sat on the board of?
Mr. Chair, the Verschuren Centre is a non-for-profit organization. Any funding goes to support the ecosystem and its company.
That wasn't my question. You chaired an organization that used its staff to find other government money when it was conflicted and you couldn't get money out of the thing that you chaired, the Green Slush Fund. So you used the staff to find money from other government departments who then ended up giving the Verschuren Centre not $6.8 million, but $11 million. To me, that's a total abuse of your position, just for MP from Erskine Smith's information. He doesn't seem to think that's a problem. And then that centre,
Point
the
of order,
Verschuren
Mr.
Centre,
Chair.
the Verschuren Centre then invested.
Point of order, Mr.
Just
Chair.
1 second, Mr. Perkins. Yes, Ms. Khalid.
Absolutely uncalled for. Taking
Ms.
shots
Khalid,
at
that's not a
colleagues.
point of order. And
No,
that's,
it is.
by the standards of this
genuine-
committee,
Point of
that's a
order.
pretty light poke.
Point of order.
So,
Point of order.
yes, Mr. Erskine Smith, your poke at a Conservative member was quite a lot harder than that, but I'll hear your point of order. Go ahead, please.
Well, it's actually not, Chair, because he's suggesting that I don't care about an ethics violation when I've clearly
Yeah, okay,
stated multiple times that I do.
The meeting's been going
it's my
exceptionally well.
reputation
No,
and-
Ms. Perkins, this is not a point of order. And there is a Liberal member up next, and if you feel the need to rebut what Mr. Perkins and anyone else is saying, you're free to do that. But these are not points of order. These are light pokes I'm hearing from all sides, and they're certainly well within.
I understand,
Yeah.
Chair, but I'm on record saying I don't approve of ethics violations, and Mr. Cooper's on
Okay,
record saying he
thank
doesn't
you.
understand insider trading.
Yes, you made your position clear in your turn, and if you like another turn, you're welcome to speak to your whip. But these are points of debate, not points of order. Mr. Perkins, you've got about 30 seconds left.
So as a board of SDTC, you used the staff to find funding for the Verschuren Centre, which you couldn't get from SDTC. You got twice as much from the government as you asked for. And then that centre invested in an organization that you have a financial interest in, Sandpiper, Denova, and the Bio Creators. So there is a clear link between your efforts to get money for the failed Verschuren Centre, get that so that they could give money to a company you had a financial interest in. That's a direct conflict of interest, and it's personal benefit by you, which is what the minister set up when he appointed you and knew and was warned that you had conflicts of interest.
Mr. Verschuren, I assume you have no
No comment.
That's fine. That's fine. Up next.